Philadelphia more or less anytime you want. I'll see you tomorrow for another Live Uncut. Be safe, be well, and get home tonight.
Jen Frederick, and this is Philadelphia Live. As you can see, there is quite a bit happening as we begin. All right, so I'm going to lead you through the quad box. Basically, on the top to the left, where you see firefighters, that is San Bernardino County. Basically, firefighters are battling a massive 6-alarm blaze that investigators in California say was intentionally set by a warehouse employee. Several employees were inside the building at the time. They were able to evacuate safely. No injuries have been reported. Kimberly Clark, who owns that building, said, "We are aware of the fire at our distribution center in Ontario, California." Goes on to say safety is our top priority and we can confirm no reported injuries. Apparently that facility is operated by a third-party partner. So they're trying to work with them and the local authorities to see exactly what's going on. And then the other thing that we have going on is Artemis II. As you see, that is a live picture from outer space. Like we did yesterday, the astronauts sometimes will just pop on and talk to us live. So we'll be watching that to see if they do so again today. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, he's in the box below. He is in Budapest, Hungary, basically supporting a candidate there. We'll talk about that. And then it is another down day for Wall Street. So we are going to begin in Hungary with the Vice President, J.D. Vance.
Americans welcomed Louis Kossuth, the hero of 1848 and the father of Hungarian democracy. Now, Kossuth was greeted in the United States like a rock star, much better than a politician. His arrival and the more general cause of Hungarian independence, it captured the imagination of our young nation. He received the distinction, the second foreigner ever in our nation's history after Lafayette to address a joint meeting of Congress. And his bust stands in the United States Capitol to this very day. Now, during that trip, I didn't realize this until a few days ago, that during that trip to the United States, Kossuth visited my home state of Ohio to make his case for Hungarian independence. We have some Ohio fans over here, that's good. Before the state legislature in Columbus, Ohio, he declared, quote, "The spirit of our age is democracy. All for the people and all by the people. Nothing about the people without the people. My nation." He went on, "My nation will rise, called to resurrection by the eternal principles of the law of nature and of nature's God." Even then, this great Hungarian patriot was aware of the intimate link between sovereignty, between self-government, and between our divine creator. And I'm proud to say that according to the history books, the part of the country that gave him the proudest reception and the biggest reception during his entire time in America was my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio. You have to imagine this, and you tell these stories and you think, how can the bureaucrats think that we're not capable of self-government and choosing our own destiny? Because when Kossuth came to Cincinnati during his tour of Ohio, there were railroad tracks lined with citizens, delighted to behold Hungary's great freedom fighter. Reportedly, 100,000 of them showed up just at his one stop in my hometown. And the affection, I gotta say, I'm a little biased here, the affection was mutual. The people of Cincinnati, Kossuth said, quote, change the wilderness of primitive forests into an immense city, of which there exists a prediction that by the year of our Lord 2000, it will be the greatest city in the world. And no offense to Budapest, but I think he's right about that. But it tells you something very real, that when Kossuth looked at the United States of America, he didn't see something radically different. He saw something familiar. In our nation, he recognized the same forces at work that were shaping Hungary. People building something of their own, out of wilderness, with purpose, conviction, and a deep belief in where they came from and what they were called to do. And standing in Cincinnati, he saw something in America that he believed was just the beginning. The West, he exclaimed. There you can see the cradle of a newborn humanity. It was true then, and it's still true today. But America, like Hungary, was not a place just of rest. It was built around the idea of creating and renewing. And those early Americans, like the heroes of your own nation, took that inheritance and they shaped it into their own. They added to it. They fortified it. They passed it down to their children and to their grandchildren, who then did the same, with the expectation that generations later, those grandchildren would carry it forward. On his fateful trip to America, Kossuth announced that Hungary was to become, and this is perhaps my favorite quote, the cornerstone of national independence on the European continent. This guy was a prophet. Kossuth called this the cornerstone of independence, the cornerstone of sovereignty on the European continent, and though he didn't live to see it become so, I declare that prophecy is true today in 2026. Now, under Viktor Orban's leadership, you have held on to the civilizational goods that make a country worth living in the first place. Sovereignty, prosperity, history, a sense of national community, the redemptive nature of bringing new life and new families into the world. This is an awesome and difficult responsibility, because across much of the West, there's a growing uncertainty about whether these things matter or whether they're worth fighting for. But not here. You have stood up to the bureaucrats. You have stood up to the nihilists. And now I wonder, will you do it again? Will you stand against the bureaucrats in Brussels? Will you stand for sovereignty and democracy? Will you stand for Western civilization? Will you stand for freedom, for truth, and for the God of our fathers? Then, my friends, go to the polls in the weekend. Stand with Viktor Orban, because he stands for you and he stands for all these things. God bless Hungary and God bless the United States of America.
All right, so once again, that is J.D. Vance. As we look at him and watch him get what they call his flowers, he is in Budapest. So a lot of people are saying, you know, with the war happening, why would the number 2 man in the United States be flying to Budapest? We have your answer. He is there to boost that gentleman the Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, who basically has been in power for many years, but is facing his biggest political test. So basically, the country's national elections is happening. That is a nation of 10 million. So inside Hungary, you need to know that the visit is being viewed mainly as an attempt to basically do exactly this: boost his availability, be in front of the cameras, make sure that people know that he is endorsed by President Donald Trump. And as you just heard, Vice President J.D. Vance, both saying that this guy is kind of a model for the rest of Europe, according to them, according to the administration. They like that he's a nationalist. They like that he is pro-Russian. And despite all of that, his party and himself are both trailing in the polls behind the opposition in advance of Sunday's election. So it'll be one of the things that we are watching throughout the week. Did the vice president's visit to Budapest, to Hungary, make any sort of an impact on that election? The other thing that we are watching, there's a lot of things happening live. So one of the things that we're going to go to first is this fire. There is a fire in California. You know what? Chopper is not there. We're going to go instead to Artemis II. So Artemis II, as you know, is part of the space program. There are 4 astronauts there. 3 of them are American. 1 of them is Canadian. 3 men, 1 woman, and a couple of them are parents. It's been interesting. Last night around 7:15 p.m., you know, for about 40 minutes, this mission, this rocket, was on what they call the dark side of the moon. And there was very little communication, none to be exact. So for those 40 minutes, there was a lot of stress and a lot of joy too, because it was a historic part of this mission. As you know, these astronauts are now the humans who have been farthest away from planet Earth and closest to different parts of the moon that we simply had not seen before. The other thing that has been cool is that with specialized cameras, this team has been able to take images that we have never been able to see before. We know that they are naming craters, different things. These are craters that have never been seen by the human eye. So the big 7-hour lunar flyby happened last night. It was historic. So now this team is basically on its way back to planet Earth. So they were congratulated by President Trump. Obviously, the NASA team is really overwhelmed with pride, and many people are just thinking really positively about this mission. The astronauts themselves have said some just amazing things, really thoughtful ideas about this country, this world, and how all of us should kind of be working together to make this a better place. So, as I mentioned, there was a planned 40-minute loss of signal as Orion. So Orion is the official name of this rocket, and then Artemis II is the name of the mission. So when Orion passed behind the moon, the spacecraft and its crew made their closest approach to the moon itself. They did meet the mission's basically what they wanted to do, and that was they had the maximum distance from the Earth at 252,756 miles. So again, setting a brand new record for human spaceflight. One of the things that they're doing, they're photographing, they're describing the terrain, the features, all of the craters that they've seen there, ancient lava flows, and some cracks and some ridges. They're basically documenting what they are seeing with human eyes. The crew was basically there for a solar eclipse as well. So many things are happening, and as you can only imagine, that crew will likely be talking about this mission for a very, very long time. We do have a couple other things that are happening live at this hour. One of the things that we're looking at, your money. As we look at the stock market, you can see it's not good news. Yesterday, we had a bit of a rebound. The other thing that we're looking at, I believe it's the UN. We have individuals from the UN that are speaking. And because the president has put a critical deadline on his words, wiping out the country of Iran. You got to believe these people are potentially talking about it. We're going to listen in.
Supporting international navigation and waterways. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Panama, and I give the floor to the representative of Colombia.
Señor Presidente,
Mr. President,
Colombia observa con
notes
profunda preocupación la
with
evolución de la
profound
situación
concern
en el
the
Medio
developments of the situation in the
Oriente, que
Middle East,
registra ya su sexta semana
a
sin
situation which
señales
is now
claras
entering
de
its sixth
desescalada.
week without
Mi
clear
país
signs of
lamenta la pérdida de
de-escalation.
vidas
My
humanas
country
y
regrets the
condena
loss of
todos
human
los
life
ataques
and
contra
condemns all attacks on civilians, civilian objects, and essential infrastructure, including energy installations, whose operation is essential to ensuring the supply of basic services. At the same time, Colombia recognizes the strategic importance of the Strait of Hormuz for international commerce and energy security. Effects on maritime security have impacts that transcend the region and particularly affect developing countries. For this reason, my delegation participated actively in the negotiations and put forward proposals aimed at balancing the text, introducing greater clarity regarding the scope of the measures contemplated and avoiding broad wording which might give rise to interpretations overstepping the objective of guaranteeing free security of navigation. This in line with the principles and purposes of the United Nations Charter and international law. We thank Bahrain for the efforts made to address some of the positions and concerns expressed by members of the Council. Nonetheless, there remain substantive aspects.
So there you see the UN Security Council. They're basically talking about a number of things. Obviously, the representative from Colombia, difficult to understand her with the translator. We are going to dip in and out because they were mentioning the conflict in the Middle East, saying, they don't like the loss of life no matter who it is. At the same time, we do have the newly appointed Secretary of Homeland Security. You see him there. That is Markwayne Mullin. He is in North Carolina to talk about some FEMA things and specifically disaster relief efforts.
Yeah, well, words of affirmation is not mine at all. I want to know what we can do better. And so when we're going through this conversation, let's know what we can do better. Not just beat up on FEMA, that's not the point because they've done a great job, but what is it that we could maybe tweak just a little bit to tear down some of the redundancy. And I think, Tim, you were talking about, and by the way, first name works just perfect for me because I'm going to use your first name, so please don't feel like you need to use titles with me. But Tim, you were talking about some of the redundancy from the state and federal side. Maybe you can expand a little bit on that, and so we can see how we can break down some of those walls. And then we just go around. I don't know how you want to handle it. Just go around the room. Yeah. And then press, we'll take some questions from you guys towards the end too. Is that okay? All right. Tim, you want to go ahead and start?
I probably actually brought something for you to read on the airplane on your way back.
I need something else to read. Yeah. They're not giving me enough binders right now.
So there's probably 3 pinch points that we're dealing with right now that are causing us a problem from a recovery standpoint. The first one is the hazard mitigation grant program. I think it's a good program, but when most of the buildable land in our area here is in floodplains, it does creates problems on our recovery, especially when rebuilding our roads. So if a property owner qualifies for the hazard mitigation grant program and their property is conveyed to the federal government, if we could have permission to use it for a core public purpose, like rebuilding our roads, rebuilding water and sewer, then that allows us to not have the conflict between present day value offerings from the condemnation, taking their rights away from them, but I think it protects the integrity of the federal design to make sure that we're not building a structure back in a flood prone area, if that makes sense. So what I've been trying to work with, and I spoke to Victoria and Greg about it a few weeks ago, and Tim's been working with me, and so has Ted's office and Congressman Edwards, is just really a memorandum of agreement from FEMA that basically says if this property was a recipient of a hazard mitigation grant and the state or the local government needs to use it for a core public purpose, then here in writing is permission to do so. So that's one area that we need a lot of help. The other one, there's two more, but I'll just get into the other one. There's a consensus that this was a 1,000-year storm, and I think that's a uniform consensus, but public policy is really geared around 100-year storms. So the fact that we have a lot of areas that were not in a flood hazard area in the beginning, but they are now, is limiting our ability to rebuild structures simply because they were damaged in a 1,000-year event. So we had adopted a 200 historic flood event, part of our statutes, that we're looking to get a memorandum of agreement from FEMA that says, yes, you're not going to be in violation of the National Flood Insurance Program if we respect the fact that your statutes are very constrained, but it allows your communities to rebuild. And an example of that is the town of Biltmore Village. Biltmore Village is historic. It's the gateway to Biltmore Estate. We have structures there that were built to a 100-year floodplain. This storm was 11 feet above that. You have a lot of historic buildings there that need to be rebuilt, but they can't be rebuilt because they were more than 50% substantially damaged, which requires them all to be lifted 6 feet or they're just going to remain vacant. So our ask is, from the state's perspective, it's a 1,000-year event. The likelihood that that's going to happen again mathematically is on our side that it won't. Allow us to rebuild without these constraints that are imposed on us federally.
Karen, do you know about this? Are you familiar with it?
About the NFIP, yes.
What do we need to do?
We're working through some of those flood mappings now, and so I took a note down, sir, to follow up on his.
So again, that is the new Homeland Security Secretary, Markwayne Mullin. He is attending a FEMA event in North Carolina, really talking about how they have disaster response. As you know, there was a big hurricane there a couple of years ago, not long ago, and people had a lot of questions about FEMA funding, where they were, their absence. Those are their words in that area. So he seemed to be kind of talking to them. At the same time, we showed you a live picture. Artemis II, the mission to the moon, one of the first times that we have humans there going around the moon again in 50 years, is happening. And Chelsea Torres is in Houston. As you know, there's two big space areas. Obviously, Cape Canaveral is Space Coast, and Houston is really where all the activity is happening now. Good afternoon.
Hey there, good afternoon, Jen. How are you?
So what's going on? I mean, I know I can see some NASA stuff behind you. What is the latest in terms of what's happening in Houston?
Sure. Well, I mean, just yesterday, I could tell you that we can go over the recap of exactly what happened on this lunar flyby. So for those crew members, it was about just over 6 hours while they were doing these scientific observations, taking thousands of pictures, recording audio, doing their own annotations as they went around the moon and its orbit. Now, on this journey itself, crew members were able to kind of get every sort of part of their list that they had. They had a list of targets, or really objectives, to observe, mostly studying the moon's craters and topography, taking pictures, describing the texture and colors, all while drawing their own renderings of what they're actually seeing on the moon's surface. Now, during this time, crew members were constantly talking to Mission Control here in Houston, describing what the craters look like.
It is the most rugged that I've seen it. From a lighting perspective, there are little islands. There are islands of terrain out there that are completely surrounded by darkness. So we have obviously the dark and the light gray, and then we talked about naming some colors, a brownish hue and a greenish hue.
Now, scheduled in the flyby was a period of no communication. This would happen while Artemis II was on the other side of the moon, lasting just under 45 minutes. Crew members said this is when they did some of their most detailed observations. They even took a little time for themselves, and they said they ate some maple cookies in that little window. Now, towards the end of their lunar flyby, crew members experienced a total solar eclipse because of the Orion spacecraft that was directly behind the moon, blocking the sun. At the end of the workday, President Trump even congratulated Artemis II and got their first reactions.
I have to tell you, as we came around the near side of the moon, seeing all the sights that we've seen from Earth for all of our lives, but we're seeing them from a different perspective, and then we started to get a glimpse of the and we saw sights, Oriental sights that no human has ever seen before, not even in Apollo, and that was amazing for us.
And Jen, back here in Houston, all the NASA scientists are still going over all of that data and footage. They've been doing that overnight, and they'll continue doing that. The crew members on Artemis II woke up from their long rest just about 45 minutes ago, maybe close to an hour now. So they will definitely reconvene, kind of go over everything that they've been seeing in the last 24 hours, what they've been observing. But Artemis II mission is not over. We're now in the second half, and they're expected to splash down off the coast of San Diego Friday evening. Jen?
Okay, so I was going to ask you that question. Do they all sleep at the same time? Do you know how that, or do they sleep in shifts, or it sounds like what you just said was they all just woke up?
Yeah. So from what I know and from the schedule that I've been seeing, yeah, it's all at the same time. They have a certain schedule of when they go to sleep and, when they wake up. Even yesterday, they weren't all kind of doing the same exact tasks. Everybody has a role, right? And that's throughout the entire time that they're on the Orion spacecraft. But even yesterday, there'd be 2 crew members looking out the windows, taking observations, while 2 others were in the cabin doing other parts of their job duty. So, and then they'd kind of switch off. There were also, during that time, they'd have 2 people that would have a meal time and eat their afternoon meal while the other 2 were still working and taking those observations. So yes, they're pretty much on a strict schedule at this point of what they're doing and how they do it.
All right, thank you. We appreciate the help. Chelsea's in Houston today.
Thanks,
we
Jen.
appreciate the help. And by the way, if you want to follow them, the astronauts, their children, they're all on Instagram. It's one of the things I've been doing. We do have a ton happening today. We're on until 2, as we are every day. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break and be right back. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick. We're following a fire in California. At one point, it was literally raging. We now know that police are saying they believe it was arson. I believe we have some, yep, there you go. Those are the images there. So that is San Bernardino County. All of this unfolding earlier today. It is a Kimberly-Clark building, which is a pharmaceutical company, that is operated by a third-party partner. Multiple agencies surrounding there, making sure that everything was okay. It happened around 12:30 a.m., so late, and then it was still raging, this morning. Basically, it's a 1 million square foot Kimberly-Clark warehouse. It's near Ontario, California, if you know that area. So several employees were inside the building at the time. They were able to evacuate. At this point, no injuries are being reported. The one thing that we do know is that authorities have arrested an employee of that company, and they believe that it's arson. At this point, we do not have any idea what the motivation would be. But again, one suspect in custody at this time. As you can see, just flames ripping through the roof of this warehouse. When the first arriving crews got there, they immediately called for a second alarm. They do believe that all of this was fueled by paper products that are stored inside that facility. At one point, this was a 6-alarm fire. So many different fire departments responded to this. It took several hours. At one point, it was just a defensive strategy. They were basically pouring water on the hours-long blaze from all kinds of ladder trucks, and you've seen some of that video as well. So it's just one of the stories that we are looking at. We know that their Skyfox is going to be over it now because people are still trying to figure out exactly what was going on. Back here at home, there was an officer-involved shooting again this morning, and Jill Croce is on that story for us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Jen. We're in West Philadelphia, the 5400 block of Webster Street. Right behind me is where the shooting happened. This happened just after 7 a.m., so police are gone, sanitation crews are gone. Hearing around the block that the man was in his 70s, waiting to confirm that from Philadelphia police. He died in front of his home. Again, officer-involved shooting involving officers of the 18th District. 2 officers, it was their first assignment of the day. They received a radio call for a man with a gun. And here's what happened. 2 officers responded. One of them started to approach him. There's some type of confrontation. And the officer, a shot was fired, and the officer had to take cover. Then there was a return fire, and that's when the male was struck one time. The male was taken to Penn Presbyterian Medical Center. He was pronounced dead. The weapon has been recovered. This is under investigation. But if you were just passing the street now, Jen, you wouldn't really know what transpired this morning. But we were here, sanitation crews were here. Like I said, they're long gone. There's also a name floating around the block. I'm not going to say a name because Philadelphia police, I called them moments before this live hit. They would not confirm the age yet or his identity. If we get that information, you'll be the first to know. But we'll be covering this today. And if there's any other press conference, if any other press release happens, if we also spoke with some neighbors today, and I want you to hear what they're saying about him. They said one man who has been on the block for decades says that he's never seen aggression from the man who died, never an issue, says that he was a veteran, said that the man would often go to his porch in the morning, have some coffee, feed the birds, and he called the man that was shot today a mentor for the block, and we'll have more on that story later today. Another person described him as a quiet man, stayed to himself, so really no negative things to say about the man from the 4 people who we spoke with around the block. Again, name is floating around, age is floating around, have not confirmed that with Philadelphia police. We're waiting to hear.
All right, thank you. You hate to hear when anyone
You're
passes
welcome.
away. All right, we're going to go and look at 2 things live at the same time. We have the stocks not looking good, as you can see. And then you see the representative from Greece is now speaking to the UN. The UN, they're basically focused on what is happening in the Middle East. That's the same thing the stock market is also focused on. So the stocks fell today as President Trump's deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz has now approached. And the reason why analysts are saying the market doesn't look good is that the hopes of an agreement are fading. As you probably know, you might have heard about it here yesterday, Trump set an 8 p.m. Eastern time deadline for the U.S. and Iran to strike a deal on reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And then just today, he also has been speaking out on Truth Social. President Trump gave what people are calling candidly a spicy post over the weekend. And then, as you can see, now we're seeing today, just about 8 o'clock this morning, this is what the president posted. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. So certainly spicy, to say the least, coming from the leader of the free world. It is something that is affecting both the stock market and the UN. We're going to go now as the representative from Denmark is likely speaking about this topic.
With all the countries concerned, de-escalation and respect for international law, including international humanitarian law, are now more important than ever. All diplomatic efforts to reduce tensions must be pursued. We welcome any such efforts and call for negotiations to be resumed in good faith. We welcome the Secretary General's appointment of Jean Arnaud as his personal envoy to lead UN efforts on the conflict in the Middle East and its consequences. Mr. President, many aspects of this conflict have sent shockwaves across the globe. This is particularly true for the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, caused by Iran's actions. This closure is not only a disruption, but a dangerous escalation, measured in lives and livelihoods lost. Global growth and development depend on the freedom of navigation, the repercussions for the global economy, and, increasingly, for food security, in particular across developing countries, are enormous. As a great maritime nation, Denmark is committed to maritime security, to open sea lanes, and to the safety of all seafarers. Mr. President, Iran's actions near and around the Strait of Hormuz constitute a threat to international peace and security. Iran must immediately cease all attacks and any other attempts to impede lawful transit passage in the Strait of Hormuz. It is crucial to permanently restore safe passage and ensure freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, consistent with Security Council Resolution 2817 and the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. That is why Denmark voted in favor of this resolution. While we strongly regret that it was not possible to adopt this resolution today due to the vetoes cast by 2 permanent members, Denmark remains committed to safeguarding peace, security, and stability in the Middle East. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Denmark for the statement. I give the floor to the representative of Latvia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Latvia voted in favor of the resolution submitted by Bahrain, and we express our regret that a positive outcome was not reached. It is profoundly troubling that certain members of this Council have chosen to obstruct a resolution designed to ensure the safety and security of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz and advance global stability. Just 3 weeks ago, the Council adopted Resolution 2817, co-sponsored and supported by Latvia, alongside an unprecedented number of countries. In it, the Council called upon Iran to refrain from interfering with international navigation. In the days and weeks that have followed, Iran has doubled down and effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz, shocking the global economy. The continued failure and refusal by the Iranian regime to comply with its obligations under international law, including its breaches of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, as well as its persistent non-compliance with binding resolutions of this body, constitutes not only a breach of international order, but leaves this Council with a responsibility to act. Mr. President, we must ensure maritime security and freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. It is categorically unacceptable for Iran, or any state for that matter, to use an international waterway as a bargaining chip and to hold the global economy hostage. Supply chains are being disrupted, global energy prices have spiked, and acute food insecurity around the globe is growing at an alarming rate, especially among those most vulnerable. Iran is setting a dangerous precedent, which we cannot allow or normalize, and we commend Bahrain for addressing precisely this crucial reality in its resolution. Finally, alongside the unprecedented closure of the Strait, the Iranian regime is continuing its unprovoked strikes against countries in the region. We condemn these attacks against civilians and civilian infrastructure, and reiterate our steadfast solidarity with our partners in the region. We repeat our calls for immediate de-escalation and for protection of civilians. Mr. President, allow me to once more express my sincere appreciation to Bahrain for their efforts on this pressing matter. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Latvia for the statement. I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, the Russian Federation voted against the draft tabled by Bahrain, Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia. The draft resolution relating to the situation in the Strait of Hormuz and the adjacent waters. The position of our country regarding the present-day crisis in the Middle East is principled, consistent, and objective in nature. We condemn the United States and Israel's aggression against Iran. We respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries in the region, both the Islamic Republic of Iran and other countries of the Persian Gulf. We reject strikes targeting their civilians and their civilian infrastructure and view this as unacceptable. The Russian Federation undertook and continues to undertake efforts, including at the highest levels, to end such actions. We are striving to achieve a prompt establishment of peace in the Persian Gulf and in the Middle East. However, the Russian Federation was not able to support a text that would generate a dangerous precedent for international law of the sea, for any international efforts at peace, as well as for the authority of the Security Council of the United Nations. Back when Security Council Resolution 2817 was being negotiated, we called upon all Council colleagues to adopt a balanced and an objective approach. Similar, equitable messages have already been repeatedly broadcasted by the Secretary General of the United Nations, calling upon the United States and Israel to end the war and calling upon Iran to cease attacks on its neighbors. Disregard for the root causes of the crisis in the Middle East, namely the illegal and reckless acts by the U.S. and Israel targeting Iran, is not possible and not acceptable. Our and the Secretary General's calls fell on deaf ears then. Nevertheless, we understand the situation of the countries of the GCC and Jordan, and therefore we abstained during the vote on Resolution 2817. This was not an easy choice for us. However, this time, our partners from Bahrain and their like-minded partners went much further, having tabled a fundamentally erroneous and dangerous approach to the situation in the region. Essentially, nearly each paragraph of the draft they proposed abounded with unbalanced, inaccurate, and confrontational elements. And we will point to just the main points in this regard. In paragraph 1 of the preamble and paragraph 6 of the operative part, Iran's actions were presented as the sole source for the so-called destabilizing activities and regional tensions. When it comes to the real causes for the current crisis in the Middle East, namely the U.S. and Israel's illegal attacks targeting Iranian soil, this was something which was not mentioned at all. And this, despite the fact that in paragraph 3 of the preambular part, the sponsors themselves highlighted that threats to maritime...
All right, so there you see it. It's the UN Security Council. They're talking about the conflict in the Middle East. We're also looking at the New York Stock Exchange because the money that we all invest there is being wildly affected by the geopolitical unrest. We have 2 minutes. We're going to take a quick break. Stick around. We're going to speak with the president and CEO of the Gift of Life donor program. We've got TMZ coming up. We have a lot for you in just a few minutes. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick. This is Philadelphia Live. As you can see, there's a lot happening at this hour. I'll walk you around what we call the quad box. First, the gentleman speaking in your top left with the live picture. We call that a bug. That is the new Homeland Security Secretary, Markwayne Mullin. He is in North Carolina talking about disaster response. He's addressing what FEMA will and will not do in the future. Right next to him on the top, that is a live image from outer space. Artemis II, specifically the Orion capsule, is out there. We know the astronauts just woke up. They are ready for their mission of the day. This is the time where sometimes they do check in with us live. We will monitor that live camera, and if they do pop on to say hello, we will show it to you live. Below, that is a representatives from the Russian Federation. It is the UN Security Council. They're talking about the conflict in the Middle East, specifically the deadline the President of the United States has set for some type of negotiation, some type of deal with Iran. And then, of course, because there is a bit going on geopolitically, the New York Stock Exchange is not looking well. We know the markets do not like unrest, so that is not unexpected, but certainly disappointing if you're trying to make some money with your investments. At the same time, we do have the president and CEO of the Gift of Life donor program. Rick Haas is with us. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
So we were talking a little bit before we went on. We know that each April there's like a donor dash. It's one of your big months where you try to raise money and awareness. And I shared with you, and I shared with some of the people in the newsroom, I am actually technically a recipient of tissue. And so that's part of it. My knee was damaged on television. I had an ACL, and my new tissue came from a donor. And, you know, if people don't know, you get a letter from the family, or it says, do you want to reach out to them? So I think a lot of people are touched by this, and maybe the rest of the world doesn't know how big your program is.
Yeah, Jen, April is Donate Life month. It's really an opportunity for us to celebrate the successes of transplantation, and so glad that you are a success story after you received your tissue transplant. But right now in the United States, there are over 100,000 patients who are waiting an organ transplant. Here in our local area, that is about 6,000. So we come together during the month of April really to raise awareness so that more Pennsylvanians and more Philadelphians say yes to donation when asked. We're going to culminate it and commemorate it at the end of the month on April 26th, when we're going to have our signature event at the Navy Yard, our 29th annual Donor Dash. We hope to have 20,000 people there. Last year we had about 16,000, and we'll be joined by donor families, transplant recipients, and those patients who are still waiting their second chance at life.
And I think a lot of people don't really know how it works exactly. I think there's several myths about how it works, but I know that within this organization and within hospitals and ambulance teams, there's a lot of people that have to get together to get these organs and tissues donated to people in need, correct?
Yeah, our team here at Gift of Life, we're kind of the first responders of organ donation. And so when someone dies in the hospital, our team is staffed with specialists who travel to that hospital to work with families to say yes to organ donation. And once they say yes, we begin that time-sensitive process to match with potential recipients and then get the organs from the donor hospital to those awaiting transplant patients. You know, one organ donor can impact 8 other lives through organ donation. And in the case of tissue donation, one donor can help over 100 different individuals. So there's really such a tremendous impact that people can make by just saying yes to donation. And it's very easy to register to be a donor. You just have to go to our website, donors1.org. It takes about 30 seconds to register, but that 30 seconds can sometimes mean a lifetime for somebody else.
And when we do that, you and your team in the past, and I'm assuming now, you encourage people once they've decided to become an organ donor to share that information with their friends and family, yes?
Yeah, it's really important that, you know, at the time that our team is going to be interacting with you in the hospital, it's probably on the worst possible day for many of these families. Soon after getting the news that their loved one had died, our team is going to be interacting to talk about that donation opportunity. And you can really give your family a gift by letting them know ahead of time what it is that you want to have done. And we know that many families view it as a way to extend the legacy of their loved one and really to be able to pass on all the good qualities of their loved one. And so, you know, we've solved a lot of problems in transplantations. We've gotten better surgical techniques, better immunosuppression, but donation and transplant really comes down to the kindness of a stranger. And someone saying yes to donation. So the more you can talk about it at the dinner table versus in a very stressful situation in the hospital, I think the process goes a lot easier.
And then for someone who's waiting on this all-important organ, I know that like on the telephone, in the different interactions, you have nurses and doctors making sure that the tissue, that the organ, whatever's coming their way is specifically perfect or could be perfect for their body, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into the matching, the tissue typing, the condition of the organ, the age, the donor's past medical and social history. We do extensive diagnostic testing in terms of determining that organ's quality, the best match, the right organ with the right recipient. And it's time sensitive. You know, we have to get that done in a quick period of time. And then we've got to move a lot of people around, trains, planes, and automobiles, if you will, to make sure we get the teams there in a timely way and we make sure we get that organ back safely to those patients who are waiting.
That's amazing. And I think a lot of people know this, but maybe some don't. Gift Alive headquarters are right here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, we're right here at 401 North 3rd Street. And last year, you know, our community was the most giving community in the United States. We led the country with the number of donors and the number of transplants, almost 2,000 transplants coordinated last year, which is most in the U.S. history. And so we have a strong history of a giving community, and we look forward to continuing that growth in the future.
All right. Thank you so much. Great talking with you. I think it's a topic we need to talk about more candidly. And again, like I mentioned at the top, I am happy to be a tissue recipient. My knee is working. It works every day. So I'm happy to have that. Thanks for
That's awesome news, and look forward to seeing you running at the donor dash with that great knee.
I mean, it doesn't work that well. I mean, come on. Okay. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break. As we talked about, there's a lot going on. The astronauts have just woken up. Obviously, we're kind of waiting to see if we get to see what they're doing. But there is a lot happening. Stick around. We're going to be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick. This is Philadelphia Live. And yeah, there is a lot happening. We're going to be with you right here until 2 p.m. today. So I'm going to walk you around the quad box. First, you see a live box, top left-hand side. You see the word live. That is a camera that is right outside of the White House. So we don't know if we're going to get the president or if we're going to get Caroline Leavitt. That is the president's spokesperson. I can tell you we have not been given an official alert. That's typically how these things happen. But as you know, today is a very fluid day because of the deadline the president has set in terms of making a deal with Iran. The other thing that you're looking at on the top there, that gentleman is your new Secretary of Homeland Security. That is Mark Wayne Mullin. And he is in North Carolina today talking to them about disaster preparedness, how FEMA will step in when things go wrong. Below him, as you see, the gentleman from China, that is the UN Security Council. They too are talking about what is happening in Iran, what is happening with this conflict. And then the podium that you're looking at below the White House, that is the Department of Justice. So yes, we are on podium watch. The other thing that we are doing, we're kind of waiting to see if the astronauts are going to peek their heads out and say hello. We do know they just woke up from a rest. So we're going to go live to North Carolina with Secretary Mullin. Again, he is talking about disaster preparedness.
For the Democrats that are in the House and in the Senate, if you don't like the laws, then change it. Don't punish Customs and Border Patrol and ICE agents that we hired to do the job that you pass the laws for them to enforce. But if cities are going to sit there and say that they're not going to enforce immigration policies, then I'll repeat myself and say it doesn't make any sense for us to process international travelers through that city anymore.
Does the president know about this idea?
Well, we've had very top-line conversations, but I imagine this conversation will come up today when I'm talking to him. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Everyone. Appreciate your time.
So again, that is Secretary Mark Wayne Mullin, the new Homeland Security Secretary, and he is attending a FEMA event in North Carolina where they talked about all kinds of things. FEMA is one of the agencies kind of under his control. The Customs Enforcement is also part of his domain. So he was asked a lot of questions about a lot of things. Obviously, TSA and those agents also directly report Middle East.
It's illegal military
听了刚才
actions.
美国代表
Having heard
的
what
发
was
言
said by our
使
US
我们更
colleague,
加坚信
we're much more convinced
中
now
方的立场
that China's
客观
position
公正，
is objective
展
and
现了
impartial,
维护国际
reflecting the
公正
image
道义
of a
的负
responsible
责任
major
大国
power
形象
that。upholds international
我们
fairness and
所持的
justice.
投票立场
Our vote
经得起历
will
史的检
stand the
验。
test of history.
与此同时，
At the same time,
中方呼吁伊
China
朗
calls on
停止
Iran
攻击
to
海
stop
湾国家
attacking
的有
relevant
关设施，
facilities in the Gulf,
照顾海湾
address
国家
the
合理
legitimate
关切。
concerns of Gulf.
So again, kind of difficult to understand with the interpreter, the translator there, but you're looking at two sides of the Middle East equation. On the left, you're looking at the New York Stock Exchange, and the traders are saying the market is not looking good because of the uncertainty with what is happening with the president of the United States and his demands for Iran to kind of come to a deal by 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then at the same time, the UN Security Council, that's that gentleman there, they're talking about the exact same thing. Back here at home, there was a procession of fire trucks that followed a pair of hearses that went through Bucks County yesterday. You saw that right here because we had it live. Greg Payne is in that neighborhood as the ceremonies continue there. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Jen. Yes, so I mean, where we are located right now is at the Walnut Town Fire Company, and this is the fire company that both that fire chief and that assistant fire chief were killed in that accident that happened over the weekend. Just so happened that they were responding, the fire chief and the assistant fire chief, they were responding to a missing woman, and while they were working, they were in one of those UTV type vehicles, one of those off-road type vehicles, and that's when they were hit by a vehicle. And today they gave kind of a press conference update in regards to the suspect who is being charged in this situation. His name is Alexander Sepulveda Rivera. He is from New York, but they say that he currently lives in Reading. And he's being charged with a number of offenses. One in particular has to do with the fact that there were some drugs that were found inside of his vehicle, and he was suspected to be under the influence while driving. Now, according to court documents, they say that Rivera did admit to being under the influence, and also there was a crack pipe that was in his vehicle at the point in time, and apparently he has confessed, according to court documents, he has confessed and said that that was his. Now, the vehicle in general is not his vehicle, so the district attorney had mentioned today that they are still trying to track down the owner of that vehicle. But at this point in time, as you could imagine, I mean, this is just a situation that has really hit really close to home for the folks living here out in Berks County, because I mean, you're losing two of your higher staff within the fire department, your fire chief and your assistant fire chief, who are both leaders amongst this this fire department. And then on top of it, I mean, just the overall impact that this has on the community and the families that are impacted in this situation. We had an opportunity as well to see an image of the suspect of Rivera. So you'll see that later on in our 4, 5, and 6 o'clock newscast. But Jen, yeah, I mean, you can just feel just the sadness and the true impact that this has had on everybody. When the district attorney was talking, there were family members of both Mr. Schick and also Mr. Buck. Both of those are the ones that were deceased, the assistant fire chief and the fire chief. You saw that their family were on the side in tears. We did have an opportunity to do like kind of a smaller press conference with both families, who are very close to one another, and they just talked about the fact that this has been extremely hard, but they're trying to stay as positive as possible. It was really interesting to see the dynamic of the two families. They are a family that they still make jokes and they try to remain as positive as possible. And you kind of felt that when they were doing the interview. They were making little jokes and things like that just to try to keep themselves laughing and keep them. I know that there's been a number of fire departments locally in this area that have stepped up to take the calls for this fire department while they are in mourning. They did mention that the fire department, after a certain period of time, they are eventually trying to get back into the swing of things so that they can kind of return and take their calls. But for right now, they are kind of in mourning. But yeah, it's just, a small town fire department that are really just wrapping their arms around each other, and the community is doing that as well.
Greg, we do appreciate that today. At the same time, we were on Podium Watch, one of the places we're going to take you now, the Department of Justice. They're talking about a fraud task force, so we're going to listen in.
Established a National Fraud Detention Center. This fraud detention center will be a permanent, prosecutor-led, multi-agency data analytics team working to ferret out the most harmful actors defrauding federal government programs. So to the fraudsters who seek to take advantage of our nation, let this be a warning. The department will investigate you, we will charge you with crimes, and we will ensure that you are punished for your actions. The American people deserve an end to the crisis of fraud, and there is no better prosecutor to lead this mission than newly appointed Assistant Attorney General Colin McDonald, who's standing to my left. In the words of President Trump, he is very smart, tough, and highly respected. Colin is a veteran prosecutor who has spent his entire career as an assistant United States attorney in the Southern District of California. During his time in the Office of the Deputy Attorney General, he championed public safety and law enforcement, and I am confident that the National Fraud Enforcement Division and the entire department will benefit from his experience and his total commitment to justice. I expect there will be more to come in the next days and weeks from Colin and the anti-fraud task force, but I wanted to tell the American people today what this department is doing to comprehensively attack the fraud crisis in this country. Thank you. I'll take a few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Attorney General. President Trump has made no secret of the fact that he wants to see his perceived political enemies prosecuted. So now that you're in this position, how are you going to balance that relentless pressure with this administration's promise to end the weaponization of this department?
Well, look, first of all, we have thousands of ongoing investigations and prosecutions going on in this country right now. And it is true that some of them involve men, women, and entities that the president in the past has had issues with and that believe should be investigated. That is his right, and indeed it is his duty to do that, meaning to lead this country. And so I do not view this as pressure. I do not view this as something that is going to keep me up at night, except to make sure that we are investigating every case that we have to the fullest extent of the law and using all the resources we can. And when you talk about weaponization, and it's become a word that is supposedly that when we talk about ending weaponization, as if that's a bad thing for us to do. Okay, people in this room for 4 years, some of you, same people, sat here with the last administration when you saw a weaponization of this department, the likes of which had never been seen in history. And some of you are looking down now, and I get it, because you had a president who was indicted 4 times by this department. You had a president who, along with this department, had assistance. So this department helped 2 other local DAs go after the president. You had this department who stood idly by while states tried to keep President Trump off the ballot. Okay, that's what happened the past 4 years. And so when I'm asked questions or when I see reporting about shock and awe at this supposed weaponization of this Department of Justice, it means nothing to me because it's completely false. What we're doing and what we've been doing for the past 14 months is changing this department. We're no longer, people say the president wants to go after his political enemies. No, the president has said time and time again that he wants justice. And if you look at what happened to him, his family, his administration, the agents that protected him, people that happened to just walk by him on a given day, they got subjected to massive investigations by this department. So I understand the question, and I understand the pretty constant role of the media that somehow this department is weaponizing itself, but it happens not to be true. We have tens of thousands of prosecutors all over this country putting bad guys in jail. Okay, that's something that wasn't happening like it should have been happening for the past 4 years. That's going to happen tomorrow, and it's going to happen in the coming days.
She lost her job, though, because she was not successful in that pursuit?
You read the same exact communication from the president that I did. Pam Bondi is a trusted friend of President Trump's, will remain so. And no, nobody has any idea why the Attorney General is no longer the Attorney General and I'm the acting Attorney General, except for President Trump.
Two questions. One, kind of housekeeping. Since you are announced as the acting Attorney General today, when is Pam Bondi's last day on the job? And is this a position that you would like full-time?
So there's a bunch of questions there. So I am the acting Attorney General. As far as Pam Bondi's last day on the job, I'm the acting Attorney General. I'm going with her. We're traveling together tomorrow to a pre-scheduled event. So she'll be with me tomorrow. We've been regularly communicating over the past several days for an appropriate transition. She is very much a big supporter of this department, like she was last Thursday morning. She remains the same, and I expect that will continue. As to whether or not I want this job, I did not ask for this job. I love working for President Trump. It's the greatest honor of a lifetime, and if President Trump chooses to keep me as acting, that's an honor. If he chooses to nominate me, that's an honor. If he chooses to nominate somebody else and I go back to being the DAG, that's an honor. If he chooses to nominate somebody else and asks me to go do something else, I will say, thank you very much, I love you, sir. So I don't have any goals or aspirations beyond that.
And then just a quick question on fraud, sir. CBS has done a lot of reporting on hospice fraud specifically. What are you doing to clamp down on that? Who exactly are you targeting? Doctors, owners, when it comes to hospice fraud specifically?
Yes, exactly. I mean, everybody that participates in it. I mean, you see that fraud is the question was about hospice fraud. And that's the purest form of stealing from the American people's pockets, in that it is a lot of money designed to help the most vulnerable among us. And so, who are we prosecuting? It depends on who's committing the crime. If it's the doctor, it's the doctor. If it's the hospital organization itself, fine. If it's the families of the patient, fine. Yes.
There's been a lot.
Behind you, sorry.
Thank you. How will you lead this department differently than your predecessor, Attorney General Bondi? Have you had any discussions with the president about what he wants you to do differently?
So I will never talk about any communications I have with President Trump. How I will lead differently, I'm not comparing myself to Attorney General Bondi. I'm going to lead the way that I've been leading as the Deputy Attorney General, which is a job that requires obviously the same type of leadership I need to have now. So.
Question on fraud, real quick. I know this position was created differently, this AAG for fraud, by the White House. Will the prosecutors working in this newly created section, will they have a different chain of command? Will they be reporting to the White House or to the Department of Justice?
No. I mean, the Department of Justice prosecutors and support staff that are in the new division are going to report to this man right here, and then this man reports to the Deputy Attorney General and the Attorney General. So that's the way that every prosecution and prosecutor in this country works and will continue to work.
One on weaponization. Where does the weaponization working group's work stand? Will there be reports coming out of that? Just give us a general update on that. And then, secondly, I just have a question on the fraud front.
So the work is ongoing and has been ongoing for 14 months now. There's been some There's been a lot of results already from that work, if not in written work product. I expect you will see written work product on some parts of the work that's been accomplished very, very soon.
Is that driving criminal investigations further?
I'm not going to talk about criminal investigation, what's driving it or not driving it. Go ahead.
Christine Nome, there's been a lot of questions about the firm tied to Christine Nome and the ads that came through that was over $200 million in taxpayer money. Is that something that would fall under the purview potentially of this new fraud unit?
Well, when you say there's been a lot of questions, you mean you all have decided to write a lot about it, hoping that it generates something. So again, I'm not talking about ongoing investigations. If the new fraud division and what it will, the types of cases that it will encompass is pretty broad. But I'm not going to link it to some speculative idea or a question. Yeah.
Acting Attorney General Brett Blanche. My question is this: a number of military and legal scholars have raised questions about bombing a nation's, all of its bridges, all of its energy structure as possible war crimes. What is DOJ's analysis of that position, and could you give us a sense of what you're advising the White House?
We support the Department of Justice, as it always does, supports the Department of War, the White House, Department of State to the extent that's involved, and our intelligence communities to the extent that that's something that's appropriate. And we provide counsel to them, and we have been doing that as you would expect. Go ahead.
You said earlier that this Department of Justice has indicted President Trump 4 times. Can you explain what you base that statement on? Because obviously you now run this department. Are you basing that on your experience as a defense lawyer for the president, or are you basing that on
I read it in what you wrote. What is that? What kind of question is that? He got indicted 4 times. He got indicted in Florida, and then he got indicted in D.C., and then they superseded in Florida, and then they superseded in D.C. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's not, am I breaking news there, that he got indicted 4 times by the feds? This department indicted him 4 times. Go ahead, Seth, go ahead.
There's been a lot of leads been posted online about fraud in particular. Earlier this year, social media influencers have been talking about this. Are there any of those leads that have been something that have that you're not going to exclude from being part of the investigations under this new fraud unit? Particularly some of the things we saw go viral on X earlier this year.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think not just with fraud, with any crime that anybody investigates, whether it's the feds or state or local, we get leads. A lot of the ways that we solve crime is from the community and from tips. And so we saw a lot of investigative journalism or just citizens that identified what they believed to be fraud. And that's the way a lot of our cases start, not just in this space. And so, yes, I expect that I think that if you're an FBI agent, you should be willing to take a tip from anywhere. So, in the back, yeah. You. Yeah.
How specifically are you staffing the new fraud
I can't
division?
hear you.
Yeah, how are you going to be staffing the new fraud division? Like, which specific components and units are going to be pulling staff over to it? And more generally, do you have any concerns, just given the there's been a lot of discussion about AUSAs, prosecutors, and white-collar units leaving the department over the past year or being redirected to immigration cases? Do you have any concerns that you're going to have the man and women power to do the type of surge you're calling for?
So the answer to your first question is we're going to staff the new division in a combination of ways, bringing folks over that are here, using U.S. attorneys to detail their prosecutors, but they'll stay in their district, and then hiring, and so it's not limited to one place. And I have zero concerns about the narrative that exists in some of the writings from the folks in this room, from disgruntled formers and what a few disgruntled formers put on LinkedIn. Our department is prosecuting more cases than were prosecuted for 3 years, year over year, stat after stat, crime over crime. And so we can handle a lot of stuff. We can do immigration cases, robberies, drug cartels, and fraud cases. And so we're always hiring. Every administration, there's turnover. So we're no different. I think that the folks that are here, we have the best prosecutors in the world. Our U.S. attorneys are stacked with prosecutors, and they're working hard every day, and I don't think that will change. And so, no, that is, of all the concerns I have, that is not one. Back, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Cameron with Daily Wire. My question is about the emphasis on what states this could potentially be emphasized in related to fraud, sort of staffing. there? And then what does the coordination look like with other agencies within the administration? Has HHS been in the loop? Has HUD been in the loop? Are there any particular programs outside of hospice that are major focuses?
So there's every state. So as I said, we're going to do a combination of building up the division here in DC, but then every U.S. Attorney's Office, which necessarily means every state, and in many states more than one, will have at least one prosecutor dedicated to this effort. And yes, every single federal agency is involved in this. Where we get a lot of our cases from the OIGs, from their inspector generals. And so we're working, I know that Colin has already reached out and had ongoing communications with virtually, if not every one of them, and that will continue. HSI will be a big partner in this effort, FBI. Every federal agency already does fraud. So we're not saying, hey, can you guys start? Investigating something you've never executions. And it's the tip of the iceberg. And so we need to focus a lot more energy and effort on that. It's nothing that we've seen before, and it will require a lot of coordination, and that's the goal. Yes.
All right, so again, this is the Department of Justice, and they're talking about the creation of a fraud task force. He is the acting attorney general because, as you know, Pam Bondi was let go. Some other members of the administration were reassigned, but I think the actual term was she was let go. And they asked him, do you want to be the next attorney general? And he talked about his relationship with the president. So it will be for all of us to see what happens there. Back here at home, closer to home, another fire. This one deadly. A lot of animals did not survive this. Joanne Pileggi is with us. Hey, Joanne.
Hey, Jen, we are in East Hampton Township, that's Burlington County, about 30 miles from Philly. Very sad and I'm going to say disturbing story out of East Hampton Township. There was a fire at a home, but it was a home that the owner was a breeder of husky dogs. The homeowner was not there at the time yesterday. A fire broke out. This fire consumed the building, and unfortunately, I think we have some video to roll. You can't see the home there anymore because after the fire they knocked down the home, but more importantly, and so sad, there were 14 dogs there, husky dogs, and only one of them survived. Very, very heartbreaking story. The homeowner not there. Apparently he travels for business. He was not there. But when firefighters arrived, that building was fully engulfed. They were able to take 3 dogs, puppies presumably, out of the structure or the area alive, brought 3 to the hospital. And I was just told that only one of the dogs is still alive. So 9 husky dogs perished in that fire. Their bodies recovered at the scene. This fire is under investigation by the East Hampton Township Fire Department. They had neighboring departments who helped put out that fire. Neighbors talked to us, said that they had seen the dogs there, seen the dogs outside. If you drive by the house, you can see on the sign says husky puppies for sale. We have not yet been able to talk to the owner. We have reached out to him. Again, he was not home at the time of the fire. This fire, a deadly fire for dogs, is under investigation. When you're a dog lover like me, these ones are tough. Obviously, any fatal fire is tough, but yeah, you can just imagine what that was like for those helpless puppies at the time. But that is the situation. That's what we know now. 9 dogs perished in the fire, and then a couple more died after that. If I've got the math going correctly, there were 14 dogs originally there, so maybe my math's not right. Just a sad story, certainly.
For sure.
So that's what we have right now.
Thank you. It is sad. It's just, like you said, you can't imagine what was going on. Thank you for being there for us. Yeah. We appreciate it. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break. We've got Katie Byrne in Florida. There's some crazy weather there. We do have Michael Babcock from TMZ. He's going to talk about the offset shooting Kanye West has now been banned from England. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And how about a protein that can help your brain even if you have dementia? We've got all that coming up. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick. This is Philadelphia Live. As you can see, there is a lot happening at this hour. We're going to be with you right up until 2 o'clock. One of the reasons why is we're waiting to see who is going to speak at that top left podium. Where you see the word live, that is right outside the White House. We're expecting either Caroline Leavitt, who is the president's spokesperson, or the president himself. All eyes are on Washington. That's why we have another camera at the White House live. You see the flag is flying because the president basically set a deadline. He wanted the situation in Iran resolved with a deal. You saw just a moment ago the Department of, there we go, so the picture where the gentleman just left, that is now a live picture from the crew from Artemis II. And then we do have, you see what's happening there, the gentleman speaking. That is the UN Security Council. They have been speaking about the conflict with Iran. They've been talking about what the UN should do and should not do. We're going to listen in there just for a minute or two.
You have not observed the
ethical, religious,
ولم تلتزموا بقرار مجلس
and
الأمن
moral
رقم 2008
values. You have not observed Resolution 2817 and the Human Rights Council Resolution L38.
وأغلقتم
You closed
دون وجه حق مضيق هرمز
unrightfully
وهو ممر
the Strait
مائي
of Hormuz.
دولي
It is an international waterway.
ملك للعالم
It is
وليس
a
ملكا
good
لإيران.
of all peoples of the world. It's
قمتم
not a
بأخذ
property
الاقتصاد
of Iran.
العالمي رهينة
You took
بطريقة
international
إرهابية
economy as a hostage in a
فحرمتم
terror-like
دول
manner.
العالم من
You
مصادر
denied
الطاقة
the world
وإمدادات
countries'
الغذاء
sources of
والدواء
energy, medical and food
وعطلتم
supplies.
حركة
You
التجارة العالمية
disrupted international trade,
وسببتم خسائر كبيرة للاقتصاد العالمي
inflicted severe
ودفعتم
harm to international
45 مليون شخص وبالأخص في العالم الجنوبي
45 million persons, in particular in the south, to
اعتديتم
famine and
أمام مرأى
starvation.
وسمع العالم
Under the watch of the whole
على دول
world,
جارة
you
لكم
attacked neighboring
تربطها
countries of
بكم
yours
علاقات
who
طيبة
share good
على
relations
المستوى
with you,
الاقتصادي والتجاري والاجتماعي
economically, trade,
وحتى
socially,
السياحي. لقد تحلينا
and
في
even
دول مجلس
politically.
التعاون
In the GCC
بالحكمة
countries,
We adopted wisdom
أمام هجماتكم الصاروخية
and
المدمرة.
patience in the face of the destructive attacks by your missiles.
دولنا
Our countries have
رصاصة واحدة على إيران.
one single bullet against Iran. However, our brave national forces defended our independence, sovereignty, and stability. They protected our citizens and those who are living in our territories. We have the full right to defend our countries and our peoples according to Article 51 of the Charter, which is stressed in Resolution 2817. Today, we are not talking about your deliberate attacks against our countries. We are discussing your illegal terrorist actions by closing the Strait of Hormuz, which harmed international trade and jeopardizing the lives of millions of people.
I resume my function as President of the Council. The representative of the United States has asked for the floor to make a further statement.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, so again, that is the UN Security Council. They're talking about the conflict in Iran. Sometimes when they speak through a translator, it's kind of difficult to understand. So we'll be going in and out of that. But bottom line, many of them do not like what's happening in the Middle East. They want it resolved and they want some voice in the negotiations. That's what we heard earlier this hour. At the same time, weather is a big issue. Tonight and tomorrow, it's going to be very cold here, but there is a slow-moving Gulf system targeting Florida. Heavy rain, there's flood threats, and of course, if it's yucky somewhere, Katie Byrne will be there for us. She's in Daytona Beach. Yeah, she looks great though. Hi, babe.
Hey, Jen. It's rough out here. We're getting a little bit rocked, but it's okay. Things are dying down in terms of the actual heavy rain compared to about a half hour ago, but those winds are really strong. You might be able to hear them. We've got these stormy conditions moving into parts of Florida. We also have this happening after months of drought in the state. Plus, we have this rain forecasted to stick with us until around Thursday. So we're not out of the woods for a while. That is also combined with the beach conditions. They're getting dangerous up and down the coast of Florida, and you can see when you look over at this water how rough it is out there. Many beaches are facing a rip current risk, and this is all happening, of course, during really the peak of spring break season. So there are a lot of people visiting here. It's hard to find a hotel room. We've got thousands of visitors here in Daytona Beach alone, but at other beaches as well. We've unfortunately seen hundreds of water rescues across the state since this month started, many of them happening over the weekend. Here in Volusia County, I just spoke with the deputy chief of beach safety. He was saying that they had around 20 rescues that lifeguards responded to, helping people. Most of those were related to rip currents. And of course, we have this next round of weather impacting us. So something that they're saying on top of, unfortunately, we know it's tragic. We had 2 drowning deaths related to the rip currents here in the state. Officials confirming a 47-year-old man died tragically while saving his kids over in Juno Beach, and then a 50-year-old man was pulled from the water near Pompano Beach. So this gets just so dangerous so fast. Officials say even the best of swimmers can find themselves in danger in rip currents. And one thing that the deputy chief of the beach safety here in Volusia County mentioned to me was, because this week is so rough with the weather and we've got these visitors here kind of hunkering down inside, hopefully. I mean, we don't see anyone out in the water, of course, and they've got the red flags flying, but because of that, this weekend could get really busy with people wanting to get back out there and make the most of their vacations after they have lost so many days because of this weather. So this weekend we're going to have to keep our eye out too, Jen, because of just the people are going to want to get back out there because they had so much of their trip indoors with this weather, which is likely to stick with us through the rest of the week. But we'll bring you the latest. Right now we're in Daytona Beach. We might hit a few stops while we're in the state, but a lot to talk about here. I was wondering, what month we're in, because it almost feels hurricane season-esque.
About that, I mean, right now it's April. Hurricane season is traditionally July, August, September. Am I right?
It peaks around then, but yeah, we are getting closer. Actually, on Thursday, we're expecting that first outlook from the Hurricane Center to talk about what they're predicting for the season. So we'll know a little bit more information as far as what they're looking at. So we're getting closer to knowing more about the season, but it's definitely a little bit chillier. So it's not a totally hurricane feeling, but when we first stepped out and we had these winds and the rain just coming down sideways at you, yeah, definitely was looking at the calendar like, where are we right now? It's only April.
And not comfortable to stand in hour after hour and talk to people like us in Philadelphia. I have to tell you, it's not raining here, but it's going to be very cold in the morning. There's a freeze warning. So either way, you don't want to be here and you don't want to be there in terms of weather. Thank you.
I did get a sunburn yesterday.
Oh,
so can't complain. That was nice.
Congratulations. All right. Thank you, Katie Byrne from Fox Weather. Okay, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break. We're going to be right back. We're watching a lot today. We're watching those astronauts waiting for the president to potentially speak, and we're talking about your brain in just a few minutes. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick. This is Philadelphia Live. One of the things that we like to do is kind of figure out what you guys are asking about. We look at things that are trending and look at the analytics to see what you're talking about, what you're searching for, so we can maybe talk about it as well. This is one of those instances. Apparently, there is a new study. It comes out of UC San Francisco, and it says that there's a protein that they just kind of looked at that can not only prevent cognitive issues in your brain, but potentially could reverse cognitive damage. I hope I said that right. If I said that wrong, this guy, Dr. Christian, is going to tell me, hello there, friend.
Hello there, Jen. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so I looked at this and I think this is really good, but you say we have to explain it a bit.
Yeah, so this is a study that looks at it's a study in mice. So it's really exciting, but we have to take this in context. This is happening in mice. where they were able to find this protein in the brain. Individuals that are older, or the older mice, have this protein called FTL1. It had to do with how your body is processing iron. So it's ferritin light chain 1. And when mouse are older and they have cognitive issues, this protein seems to be high. And when you reduce it, it actually improves cognitive function. So the thought is, how do we figure out how to potentially translate this into humans? But right now, we don't have a human study specifically, but this is exciting, and it kind of brings some things that we already know about what the brain is doing in terms of how it's making energy and getting rid of waste.
Okay, so too much iron, bad. I know that a lot of doctors are testing all of us for iron and they say we're low. Do you think this will eventually mean that having low iron is good?
Not necessarily. So this is, let's break it down. So yes, having low iron is good if you have too much iron, okay? Because low iron is needed to make red blood cells. So it's also good for energy. So if people have low iron, they become anemic. They're not able to make red blood cells. But this is specifically in the brain, is just how the brain is metabolizing or breaking down iron. So your body uses all of this energy, and then this protein builds up. So too much of it is not good. It's all about balance when it comes to your physiology.
There's two guys in this room, Chris and JP. They've been yawning like literally the whole time today, and then they make me yawn. Do I need to give them some iron? That's what I just heard.
Not necessarily. I think that the place to start with this, basically what this study shows us is that how the brain ages relates to how it uses energy efficiently, metabolism and oxidative stress. So those are two things that this study kind of points to. And we already have specific interventions that is well established to kind of help people to improve their cognitive function or brain function. So yeah, Chris and your crew there, exercise, aerobic exercise, strength training, those are great for the brain. It increase blood flow, it increase mitochondria, so your brain can make more energy, because the brain uses a lot of energy. It's only 2% of your body's weight, and it uses about 20% of it. Sleep, super important. When you sleep, you clean the brain. There is this system called the lymphatic system. So you have this cleaning garbage system in the brain that the brain has to clean itself out. So sleeping is really good. Obviously, learning new things also improve your cognitive function. So there's specific things that we have a lot of evidence with that can help with brain function.
All right, and so this study really, we've been kind of like, joshing around a little bit, but this study kind of cements some of the things that you guys as doctors and researchers already knew, right? It's proving that these things that you've said, physical activity, weightlifting, you talk
Sleep.
about, sleep, getting all the toxins out, all of that is something that can really make a difference long term.
Absolutely. And something that individuals can also think about and doing is learning something new is actually good for the brain. So when you don't use the brain, you lose it. And actually, I have a 90-year-old client who's in longevity medicine, and I asked her, like, how do you keep your brain sharp? And she told me every year I learn something new. So making it a habit of learning something new every year is also very good for the brain. So it's more complex, but this is a great point to getting something specific as to how potentially cognitive decline happens. But the underlying cellular mechanism is we have to make sure the cells in the brain are making energy efficiently, and it's also taking care of itself by cleaning the waste that it makes when it creates energy.
As we wrap up, I leave here every day, I go to my house and I do Wordle, because I think that's a brain he says yes.
Yes.
That's good. I feel like that's just using my brain, and it resets after all these craziness here. That's right.
Absolutely. Do that. Make sure that you don't have too much iron. Make sure that you focus on nutrition that doesn't have a lot of inflammation, and all of those things help to support your brain.
All right. I love it. Thank you. And I know we had technical difficulties yesterday, so thanks for hanging with us today. We appreciate the help.
Of course. Okay. Yeah, thank you for the work you're doing in educating all of us and getting the news to us. So thank you.
Thank you. You are welcome, Chris and JP, and who else? Oh, Keith is not helping. All right, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break just so Keith can continue his nap, because he did say sleep is important. So Keith, yeah, keep sleeping back there. We'll be right back. Welcome back in, everybody. This is Philadelphia Live. Oh, man. We did have a very pretty quad box for you. There we go. Hope is restored. So we have a couple of different images for you, all of them right here on the top left-hand side. We're still waiting to see who is going to speak at that microphone setup that is at the White House. We believe it will be either Caroline Leavitt, who is the president's press secretary, or the big guy himself, the president of the United States. All eyes are on the White House and the president today because of the comments that he's made, both in person and through all of the social media apps. Because he's been talking about, his words, annihilating Iran, the stock market has not looked that good. So as you can see, still in the red. We also were listening in to the UN Security Council. That's that one live camera there. And then finally, Artemis II. That mission is in space. They will be there until Friday when they splash down somewhere near San Diego. I think it'll happen in the evening. But remember, 4 people on board that spacecraft. It's the closest humans have ever been to the moon, the farthest away they've ever been from planet Earth. 3 Americans, 1 Canadian, 3 guys, 1 woman. Because the president's comments are really what is spurring what's happening, you know, at the UN Security Council, what's happening in Wall Street and beyond. We're going to listen in to some of the things that he has said about this all-important 8 p.m. Eastern tonight deadline.
Last week you suggested that Europe should take the lead on reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Has circumstances changed now that you're issuing a direct 48-hour ultimatum? And secondly, would a new ceasefire include Israel, or would it just be between Iran and the US?
I can't talk about ceasefire, but I can tell you that we have an active, willing participant on the other side. They would like to be able to make a deal. I can't say any more than that, but they'd like to do it.
You've listed the goals. Excuse me.
Please, go ahead.
You've listed
Thank
the
you, Mr.
goals.
President.
Who you with? Who you with?
My name is Dia Kurd. I'm with the largest Kurdish media outlet, Ruda Media Network. It's based in Iran.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, you said before that you don't want the Kurdish forces to enter Iran and be harmed. Do you still want them to stay away? Or what role do you expect them to play now?
I'd rather have them stay away.
And then,
I'd rather have them stay away because I think they bring with them some problems and some difficulties. And I don't think they bring death, I mean, you know, to themselves. But I'd rather have them stay away. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the question. Deliberate attacks on civilian infrastructure violate the Geneva Conventions and international law.
Who are you with?
I'm with the New York Times. Zolan from the New York Times. Are you
failing?
Are you concerned?
Circulation way down at the New York Times.
Are
What's
you
going
concerned
on?
that your threat to bomb power plants and bridges amount to
No,
war
not at
crimes?
all. No, I'm not. I hope I don't have to do it. But again, I just said 47 years they've been negotiating with these people. They're great negotiators. And because they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. And if somebody that takes my place someday is weak and ineffective, which possibly that will happen because we had numerous presidents that were weak, ineffective, and afraid of Iran, we're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And if you think it's okay for people that are sick of mind, that are tough, smart, and sick, really sick, you know, from a policy standpoint, from a any which way you want to say, mentally, these are disturbed people. If you think I'm going to allow them, and powerful and rich, to have a nuclear weapon, you can tell your friends at the New York Times, not going to happen.
It means violating international law.
Quiet. You no longer have credibility at the New York Times. Because the New York Times said, oh, Trump won't win the election, and I won in a landslide. I won every swing state. New York Times said, oh, Trump won't win the election. New York Times has no credibility. The credibility they have is it used to be all the news that's fit to print. The old gray lady, it was great, but they're running on past fumes, and you can't keep doing that. You have to be able to give the correct news. And people like you, who I know, are fake. You're fake. Go ahead, please.
Your messaging on the war has moved from the war is coming to an end to war going to be bombing Iran to the Stone Ages.
Right.
And we've heard a range of those kind of messages. So so which is it? Are you winding this down?
Can't tell you.
Or are you escalating
I can't tell you. I don't know. I can't tell you. Depends what they do. This is a critical period. They have a period of, well, till tomorrow at 8 o'clock. I gave them an extension. They asked for an extension of 7 days, right? I said, Steve, give them 10 days. 10 days is up actually today, so I gave them 11, I guess, indirectly.
So then again, those were some of the comments from President Trump, just talking about the deadline and what he expects from the people who are leading the country of Iran. At the same time, back here at home, there's a lot going on in and around Hollywood. And certainly if you are someone who checks out the TMZ website, as I do, you know the people that are working in that newsroom are also very busy. One of them is Michael Babcock. Hi.
Hey, Jen.
All right. So
how are you?
Again, I'm great. How are you?
Good. Good. Very good.
Offset, not good. I just saw him on TMZ.com smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, this was a scary situation. So last night, Offset is at the Seminole Hard Rock Casino and Hotel in Hollywood, Florida, and he's there. He's going to an appearance. It's going to be an exciting night, a fun night. And then something happens, Jen, and it results in Offset literally being shot. Now, we know the history of what happened, with the Migos, and he has already lost somebody close to him, by gun violence. And now for him, too, to be the victim of gun violence. Now, the positive development here is that Offset is going to be okay. He is in the hospital still, but he's there, stable condition. And you've got his team, who maybe this is them downplaying it a bit, but they say that he's fine. So like almost, no sweat, just shot last night, but he's okay. As to what exactly happened, that's still unclear. There is another interesting part of this story, though, Jen, is that Lil TJ is another rapper, very popular rapper in his own right, who was arrested at the casino or around the casino in that area for disorderly conduct. Now, he has not been charged in the shooting. Disorderly conduct, $500 bond, so a relatively minor charge. But you wonder if that is going to ultimately change and there could be more serious charges to follow here. It's odd that you've got Lil TJ and Offset, who are, both have something, an arrest and one guy getting shot at the same place. Mind you, too, they've also got a little bit of drama with each other over the years. So, crazy, crazy story. Thankfully, Offset's okay, bottom line.
And people, Offset has 3 children with Cardi B. We don't know if she's checked in. We have to assume she's maybe texted him and said, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, despite the fact that they had a tumultuous breakup, I think the end of the day, like you say, Jen, they are co-parenting 3 children together. They've, whether they're in love or not, they've still got to have some sort of love for and caring for one another. So I would imagine that Cardi B was very concerned about what happened last night. You might think you're mad at somebody, and then they go through something like this, and it tends to put things into perspective.
Speaking of having no love, the country of the United Kingdom has no love for Kanye West. It started small, now it's gotten big. Explain to people what's going on there.
Yeah, so Kanye West has come back. He's got new music. He's put on a couple of shows in the States. He had 70,000 plus people, multiple nights, Jen, at SoFi Stadium. And he is back and he is performing. So with all that said, he was headed over across the pond to the UK, where he was going to headline this festival called the Wireless Festival. Well, as soon as they found out, companies did that and sponsors did that, Kanye West was going to be part of this festival, they said, no, we don't want any part of this. And you had big companies like PayPal, like Pepsi, and others that pulled out. And they said, we're not going to be part of this event if Kanye West is going to be part of this, especially given some of the anti-Semitic things that he said in the past. Well, there is going to be no festival, Jen, because the Home Office which you might say is the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, the equivalent, the UK's equivalent to that department over here in the United States, they have denied him access. They say Kanye West is not going to be admitted entrance into the United Kingdom, and because of that, he's obviously not going to be headlining any festival. So it didn't matter that the companies pulled out of their sponsorship agreements because, again, he is not ever going to be allowed to hit that stage. So the entire festival is off. The thousands and thousands of people who bought tickets, they get that money refunded, and it's almost like it never happened.
Look, I know about Tomorrowland. I know about Coachella. I know about some stuff. I had never heard of this wireless festival. Okay, so it's not just me.
I know, yeah, you and me both, Jen. I had not heard of it, but I'll say this. They had some other big-named artists attached to it. In true Kanye West fashion, he said, I'm not going to headline one night. I'm going to headline all 3 nights of the festival. So he was literally the headliner of each night, and was being the key word. But there were some other legitimate artists who were attached to this festival, and some, again, big companies, Pepsi, PayPal, like we said, and none of it's going to happen now. The entire thing is off.
All right. Thank you for checking in with us. We do appreciate it. I know yesterday we were trying to get to you, and the President of the United States had other plans, Michael Babcock.
He bumped me. I guess. Yeah, he's got a little bit more, a little bit higher profile than me, so I understand.
I would like to give you and Harvey and the whole team their credit. We've been speaking with a bunch of people today about, how we, do news and making sure we're safe legally. And twice today I heard, when you get it from TMZ, it's legit, because not just Harvey is a lawyer. You guys have 2 other working lawyers in your newsroom all the time. They
look at especially every story that has to do with any legal component. It goes by them. Nobody wants to get sued. So
they did not mention
sure
Michael Babcock, the executive producer of TMZ Sports, being a lawyer. But you've got another title.
Right. Thank you for having me, Jen. I appreciate it. It was great to talk to you again.
Okay, bye-bye.
I'll see you.
He is like, I am out of here. All right, we're going to take one last quick 2-minute break. We'll be right back.